No lunar landscape, but it's life on Mars. Westerly CC, back in the Westerly VR racing previews. This one's called Life on Mars, and it starts at the Mars factory. So on your left, behind that fence and in front of you, is the Mars factory where they build confectionery, Mars bars and things like that, sweet like chocolates. And I've no doubt we've all had a Mars bar on a long bike ride to give us a bit of energy. Other things made there, M&Ms and bounties and things like that. So nice sickly smell of chocolate in the air around these parts. And this is the Slough Trading Estate, the largest trading estate in Europe. It is. It's been here since the 1920s, and Mars were one of the first businesses to set up here. After the First World War, the British Army brought all its vehicles back from France and dumped them over miles of fields just outside Slough, or what is now Slough. And a group of industrialists bought the land and all the vehicles that had just been dumped on there, and over a number of years put the vehicles back into working order and sold them off as lorries and things like that. And when they began to run out of these vehicles that they'd purchased from the British Army, they had all these industrial units where they'd constructed the lorries, and they decided to rent them out to companies that wanted to make things. And the first two people to come in were Mars, and Mars bars have been produced on the Slough Trading Estate ever since. And also Citroën, the French car company, who carried on manufacturing cars here till 1967. But in fact, their UK HQ stayed in Slough for some years after that, changed eventually by the Peugeot merger when it went up to Coventry. But Ford's also had a plant in Slough or in Langley, which I think took a lot of the labour from the old Citroën plants. But this is it, Slough Trading Estate. It's quite an agile trading estate. They'll knock buildings down and build them to modern specs all the time. So whereas once this was very industrial, and in fact on this bend, wagon wheels and other confectionery was made here back in the day, but it's all gone. The wagon wheels factory now gone, and you'll see more sort of tech buildings and a lot of tech companies centred here. And in fact, along the Bath Road, although not all the buildings are actually part of the trading estate officially, it sort of merges on. I think Vodafone are along there, and it's odd that whenever they launch one of their new, sort of 4G, 5G, whatever they're on, Slough always gets included in the as one of the first places to get it, because their HQ is in Slough. It's a very industrial town. It doesn't make it pretty, but it is an economic powerhouse. Make no mistake. But we're heading straight out into Burnham, which sort of merges with Slough. I think parts of what you call Burnham are actually in Slough, and parts of Burnham are actually in Buckinghamshire. Now, you're seeing the first of a bit of a rise here, because hitherto out of the Mars factory, we've been going westwards. And in these parts, because the River Thames is to the south, if you head north, you're effectively going up the side of the Thames Valley. So a lot of this ride is going to be gradually uphill, and you see the first little ramps there as we come out of the Slough Trading Estate and head towards Burnham. As I say, I'm not quite sure where the border is, because there's certainly parts of Slough that people say live in Burnham, and there's parts of Burnham where they say they definitely don't live in Slough. So there we are. Slough does have a bit of a problem with a reputation, not helped by John Betjeman's poem, "Come Friendly Bombs Drop on Slough." And that poem was in fact written when the Slough Trading Estate was being built and expanding all the housing stock and factories, and the housing stock to cater for all the people working in the factories. And it was eating up lots and lots of cherry orchards. So the beautiful orchard countryside was being eaten up, and John Betjeman, who lived up the road somewhere a bit posher, didn't like seeing the countryside disappearing for this industrial giant in East Berkshire, or actually it was in Buckinghamshire in those days. It changed counties in 1972, and wrote a poem, "Come Friendly Bombs Drop on Slough," which is oft quoted today. And Slough is sort of slightly derided for being an unattractive industrial town, but of course lots of those people deriding it make a good living working in it. And of course the original series of The Office was set in Slough, in an industrial unit. My wife reliably tells me it's one of the buildings that Citroën used to occupy, but I'll take her word for it. Anyway, as we head towards Burnham, I think the official border between Burnham and Slough is about this crossroads, I think, is where it changes. And as we head up towards Burnham, now, Life on Mars is going to go through Burnham and carry on eventually eastwards. So there'll be some lumps here and there for you to climb. It's quite an interesting one. It's undulating. There will be attack points during the race, and like I say, we're still gently heading uphill. I mean, generally as you ride through Burnham, you notice there is a kind of uphill slant heading northwards. So as you can see, we're probably just climbing a little bit still right here now. I wouldn't call this an attack point, but I think riders will have to be aware of the impact of this. And if you are on the front and pushing hard, then I think the people on the back of the group might be struggling to stay on. As you can see, it's still ramping up a little bit as we head north from Burnham. We're going to cut back shortly, but as I say, all the time we're on this slope, you will notice the incline. Not a steep one, not an attacking one, but I think strategically be aware it's there, and if you are strong, use it to your advantage would be my take on that one. So you can see sort of this overspill. I mean, Burnham's largely residential. Burnham Beach is a mess. Here's the cutback. So now we're heading eastwards through Burnham, at least initially. But wait, next, guess what? Sorry to disappoint you, everybody, but I think we're going to be tweaking it a little bit northwards right about now. So here we go, northwards again. And you see immediately, you see that gradual little incline on the road as we turn in. So very, very short respite here as we head north towards the sort of Burnham Beaches area. Now, Burnham Beaches is a mess. They call it a nature reserve these days, but it is effectively a forest or woods, whatever you want to call it. And it's predominantly beech trees, as the name Burnham Beaches suggests. As was quite common in, I think Burnham Beaches still is in Buckinghamshire, actually. But South Buckinghamshire was known for its beaches. And, of course, High Wycombe, just north of here, was famous for the furniture trade because the beechwood was used to make furniture. Very deforested these days, of course, but Burnham Beaches still exists. Owned by the Corporation of the City of London, so it's technically part of the City of London, although it's out here in Buckinghamshire. And also around Burnham Beaches is a country home for one of the top ministers in any government. A bit like the Prime Minister of Britain lives in 10 Downing Street, but has a country home at Chequers. There's a second country home for senior minister. So most of the time it's given to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who runs the economy. Occasionally not. I think John Prescott lived in it when he was, I think, leader of the House of Commons or whatever he was. But Dorney is, as I say, one of these country homes for top-ranking politicians, and no doubt some very famous and important dignitaries from around the world have visited it. So you can see now we're out of the urban sprawl of Slough, much prettier in South Buckinghamshire here. Nice for cycling, despite that little puddle there. Lots of little lanes around here, and we do use them quite a lot for our club rides, recommended area. And it's, I suppose, just south of the, well, you can see here again, here's another one of these little ramps that you're going to get, attack points. I do stress, have a look at, on this one, definitely have a look at the profile on the Ride with GPS route that we publish. Look at it on your laptop rather than your phone, and you can get a look at the profile. I think there are about 4 possible attack points, and you're going to have to make up your own mind and base your own strategy on what you think your strengths are. But of course, be ever watchful of what everybody else is doing, because I think there's probably about 4 places on this route that might suit an attack here in Life on Mars. Not quite a lunar landscape, but as I say, it undulates. There's no doubt about that one. This one is a good attacking course. Life on Mars, as I say, it was named because we started at the Mars factory where they make the confectionery. However, of course, it did steal from a song, and most of you will be thinking David Bowie at this point, who had a famous track on one of his albums. Was it Hunky Dory? But Life on Mars, anyway, was the track. So Life on Mars, a very famous David Bowie track. Although I think if I could afford the royalties, I would have put the Dexter Wansel song on this as the background. An absolutely pounding funk track from the late 70s, maybe 1980 or so. But certainly that era, Dexter Wansel on Philadelphia International Records. Absolutely pounding bit of jazz funk. That would have gone very, very nicely with the speed of riding. But as I say, although I do like to put a bit of effort in for these videos, I'm stretching to pay them for royalties. Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff way out of my budget. So you're going to have to just get my dulcet tones instead. As you can see, nice and lanesy here as we get out into South Buckinghamshire. There's nothing particular to report about this lane, but you, as I say, watch the undulations. They are there, and I think it will. I think this one will end up with a very elite bunch at the end. I really do, and I think it's going to be one of the most interesting races in Series 3, Westerly VR on RGT. So yeah, I think this one's going to be fun. You can see it's quite a pleasant day here. This was actually filmed in February. And we're very blessed with some warm weather and sunshine during this filming, which makes it look a bit prettier. Of course, there's a lot more leaves generally when we ride around these lanes during the summer season on our club rides, etc. But it is nice cycling country either way. It has to be said, I quite enjoy the winter rides because with less foliage on the hedges and trees, sometimes you get views that you don't always get. And there's certainly a few roads in our area where I ride through them in the autumn or spring. That's fall or spring if you're coming from the United States. But if I ride them and I sort of kind of get a view that I don't get in the summer and appreciate that sort of, difference in the same road, because it can feel different if you've got a long view across a valley that you just didn't have in the summer because of the foliage. So, I think as much as we Britons moan about our unpredictable weather, we're up in Burnham Beeches now. So we're actually sort of going to go around the edge of it now. But most Burnham Beeches, which is to our left here, is like that sort of beechwood, forest woods. It's usually a bit denser than right here. You can see a bit further to your left. You can see where it starts getting dense, all owned by the Corporation of London. But as I was saying, I think us Brits, we do moan about our unpredictable weather, but it has to be said, I actually quite enjoy the 4 seasons, and they give you different challenges, both in life, but in particularly in cycling. And, there are those sort of grim days where it doesn't look nice to cycle, but you come home and you feel like you've achieved something because you braved it out. Certainly the colours changing make all the views different times of the sea, different seasons and different times. Here's another one of these little ramps on the edge of Burnham Beeches. So this one I think is, in real life, there's enough you get enough of a momentum coming down the hill to get you up that one quite easily. But just after this is a bit of false flat, and I think it'd be interesting to see how much effect this has on the RGT race. Quite often you get up that little ramp because you've got the momentum from coming down the other one. You just see on the left there, that's one of the entrances into the Burnham Beeches with one of the City of London signs on it. But there is a general uphill along this road that is deceptive. It doesn't look like it, so you're not necessarily going to tell from the cameras. But I remember on one long Audax, I think it was a 400k Audax coming down here, and we were probably, maybe 15k from the finish. And I can remember, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, still riding back, if you've done an Audax. By the way, if you're not from the UK, when I say Audax, I mean randonnée. I don't mean the team Audax thing. In the UK, we call randonnéing or Audaxing. But I can remember coming along here, and and although it doesn't even look like it's a slope, we were continually waiting for one guy because he was struggling up these little sort of gradual slopes here. As I say, it's 2 o'clock in the morning when you're finishing off a 400k ride. It's you don't really want to stop in the cold, but as I say, every time we got on the flat, he'd zoom off and leave us. But and the other thing is when you ride these roads like this in the dark, you don't actually see much because, the trees cover the moonlight, if there is any, and other than that, there's no street lights along them. But as I say, it never struck me how much of a climb this was until that day when we found ourselves, as I say, after 400k, you're not at your fittest and brightest, but we had to keep sort of slowing down and waiting for one guy along this patch. You can see it's slightly raised. You can see the houses there. There used to be a pub there, but it's now residential housing. But you can see it is slightly rising without being a proper hill. So again, study the profile, because this is a kind of long gradual uphill that might just play to your advantage or disadvantage. So beware that it exists. As I say, we're circuiting Burnham Beeches. We're not going to go all the way around. We're going to depart on the southeasterly corner, if it has corners, but certainly on the southeasterly point. This road sort of loops round it on three sides. There's no, there is a road across the top actually. So you can actually do sort of all four sides without going into the thing if you want. But as I say, we're on the southern edge now, and we are going to take a break and leave it at the southeastern corner. Now these roads here just on the right, for example, if you ride up to Burnham Beeches, and again you can see one of those City of London Corporation signs on the outside to tell you you're going into City of London territory. Any of those roads to the right there, you notice climbing up those when you come to Burnham Beeches. It's not what I call a hill, but just those long gradual slopes because you're going up the side of the Thames Valley. And again here, as I've explained previously, we are heading eastwards. So if you're heading eastwards or westwards along here, you tend to be flat because you're going along the side of the valley. North to south, you tend to be riding up or down. But as I say, this has got 4 or 5 good attacking points in my view. Here we go. So this is where we leave the road that goes around the beaches. We're going into Farnham Common now. We're not going to stay in the village for too long as we do a right down this one. And this one takes us right to the edge of Slough again now. We're leaving Farnham Common. We're going to go down to Farnham Royal, which is right on the border with Slough. And the infamous Britwell Estate, whose reputation, put it this way, I don't think there's that many people desire to live there. It was built after the war to take people out of London into nicer houses, rehouse people. But the Britwell has its own sort of special reputation, shall we say. Anyway, this road, nevertheless, is very, very pleasant. And although, as I say, at the end of it, you have this infamous housing estate, you wouldn't know that when you're riding down here and you kind of see the nice houses and pleasant surroundings that all these people in leafy Buckinghamshire enjoy in their lifestyle. That's to say, very pleasant indeed, and a nice little pub there and everything else. As I say, we're riding down from Farnham Common to Farnham Royal. It's not the Farnham in Surrey, it's the one in Buckinghamshire. I'm sure there's other Farnhams somewhere else. I'm sure the one in Surrey is more famous because it's got a big RAF airport there, isn't it? Where they have... that's Farnborough, isn't it? I beg your pardon. But it's near Farnborough. The one in Surrey is near Farnborough. As well, lots of places called Farn around there by the sounds of it. But here we are, we're in leafy Buckinghamshire on a clear, crisp, sunny February day where the temperatures are abnormally high, I must say. I was well overdressed on this ride and sweating profusely under my winter cycling gear, which I assumed the weather was going to be like. In fact, when I left in the morning, it was very cold and warmed up very, very quickly when the sun came out. So this road, is slightly going downhill. As I say, it's an undulating course. We're heading south, so we are going downhill, so you'll hurtle down this bit. But then we cut back at Farnham Royal, go over a couple of mini roundabouts, as you'll see. You won't notice those, of course, on RGT because it's all smoothed out to keep a continuous line. But then we head eastwards again towards Stoke Poges. We end up in this race at a place called Black Park. Now, Black Park is like Burnham Beeches. It's just one of these places that, for some reason or other, somebody's decreed they'll keep as a forest. And if Burnham Beeches is famous for its ownership by the City of London and the Chancellor of the Exchequer's house being there and things like that, Black Park, you may never have heard of it, but I guarantee that almost everybody watching this video has seen Black Park before, because it has been in more films and TV programmes than anyone could possibly count. The reason being, the other side of Black Park, it backs onto Pinewood Studios, where they make lots and lots of major movies. I mean, Disney have got offices there. I mean, not all the major studios. I mean, Warner Brothers are up in Leavesden, but some of the big hitters have all got studios at Pinewood, and certainly over the years, many major movies that you've all heard of, blockbusters, have been made there. So, it's very easy for them to trot out the back of the studios into Black Park and do a bit of filming in the woods there. Probably Monday to Friday when there's less people there, because as you'll see when we get to the end, the car park was heaving when we got there today. So this is Farnham Royal. We'll just do a bit of jiggery-pokery around these two little roundabouts. If we turned right, we'd have found ourselves in Slough within a few yards, but we're not. We're staying in Buckinghamshire, and we're heading eastwards towards Stoke Poges. So this is going to be flat because we're doing that eastward trajectory. It's not going to trouble you too much. As I say, I'd urge you to have a look at the profile, because this has its points, probably most of which we've done. There are a few little bit of dips and here and there to come, but nothing too significant, I'd suggest. As I say, we're going up to Black Park, so that's the other side of Stoke Poges, and we're not really going to trouble ourselves by going northwards or southwards. We are going to largely be on this eastwards trajectory, which means just going along the side of the Thames Valley. And as you can see, it's typical rural Bucks. It's got enough residential housing for people who no doubt work in big towns like Slough, Windsor, Maidenhead or London, and the residue of farmland from a bygone age when it would have been perhaps more agricultural than it is today. But nevertheless, land prices are suppressed on purpose and certain bits of land to ensure that they stay agricultural. And we're quite pleased because we can come out riding here all the time. Are we in the Chilterns? I think certain councils who count themselves as being in the Chilterns don't count this as the Chilterns. I do, because you are beginning to get those hills that make up the Chilterns, although a lot lower here than out on the other side of the Chilterns. But historically, the Chilterns was not just the hills that we call it now. People say the Chilterns, they just mean the hills. But historically, the Chilterns came all the way down here and was made up of three distinct parts. One was Desborough, which is a bit to the north. And the other two were Burnham, which we've been through, and Stoke. And although they were called Burnham and Stoke, which are kind of near each other, their territories went far further north. So these would have been Chiltern, counted as being in the Chilterns in medieval times. Not by people don't call this the Chilterns today, but I think it is, if only because it is in the historic Chilterns area, and the historic Chilterns area wasn't just the hilly bits. So take it or leave it, and it's the end of the Chilterns. It's certainly the flat end. Right, so a little deviation up here, and we're going to do a little bit of a tour around Stoke Poges. Nothing special. This is just to build up the miles. Again, we're going northwards, of course, because we turned off, so there will be a very, very small gradient, but it's not noticeable to any great degree on this particular road. But very, very small elevation. But as I say, this is only a small detour. We are going to sort of wrap ourselves around the village and head eastward again at the end. I suppose just north of Stoke Poges, to be honest. I don't know what the area is called actually where we're going, but yeah, I would call it North Stoke Poges, shall we call it? Stoke Poges will have featured in one of the races in Series 2, the Dead Poets Society, because the poet Thomas Gray is buried in Stoke Poges churchyard, and we finished one of our races there. Beyond that, it's one of those sort of places where I think over the years has had its fair share of sort of television celebrities and things like that living in it. I mean, South Bucks is one of those areas where it's had more than its fair share of celebrity residents. Proximity to film studios, television studios, etc., is contributors to that. But they all live discreet lives. They don't brag about where they live, because obviously they don't want lots of people on their doorsteps clamoring to see them. So all very discreet, and I think South Buckinghamshire does discretion very, very well. So we continue up here. As I say, it's only a very, very small incline. And we hang back. So this is the top of that little extra loop that we were doing. We're going to continue along here. You can see, if anything, because we sort of hung back, we're now getting... It's probably flat, but it's probably a very, very small descent, to be honest, because we're sort of not quite heading directly south, but it's a kind of southeasterly direction. And you just definitely see there that it is dropping. This is descent. So that probably proves to you that we've just gone up a hill. So as I say, it's undulating, this course, and I would say study the profile on Ride with GPS. If you go to our website, westerleigh.cc, so that's www.westerleigh, spelt with an EY at the end, c.cc. If you look under the virtual rides tab and page down, you'll find that we do little lists of each series. So you go to series 3 and there'll be a link there for you to have a look at the profile on Ride with GPS. I do publish them on things like Facebook, Discord, etc., so that people can go and have a look at them. So there's plenty of places where we do show you how to get to the route profile, and you can go and have a look. It's a bit more of a main road here as we start heading, again, largely eastwards, probably not true east, but again, you can see it's much flatter here than it was in that last little section. So a slight hillock that you might want to say that we've just been over. Now we're heading, I suppose we're heading, actually it's probably more southwards than southeast, actually, this little bit of road. But we're going to hang a left soon, and that will take us over towards Black Park, and here we are. Now this, obviously, this little lane is quite narrow, as you'll see in a minute. That isn't reflected on the RGT course, which just gives you a standard RGT size road. But this quiet lane is a little cut across. It comes out at a pub at the end, a pub that's used for time trial HQ. There's a time trial course around Black Park, and they run evening time trials there in the summer months. And and they use the pub that we're going to come out at the end as the HQ, where you sign on and no doubt giving you timing chips or whatever else they do. I haven't actually done one, if I'm honest. I have ridden the course, but not during a time trial, which has been one of my ambitions to do. But just it's one of those things where I don't really always get the time to get home from work and out of London to come out here and do one. But it is on my to-do list, my little tick list, my bucket list of things to do the Black Park time trial one midweek. But as I say, it starts at the end of this road. See, it's slightly slushy here because despite the dry weather all week, the land here is quite saturated from the winter rain, and in some places it hasn't drained away. And you can see this road is quite wet, despite the fact there has been no rain for days down here. And it probably means it's rolling off one of the fields that is saturated and just depositing itself on the road. I'm not saying that for certain, but it's kind of typical of what happens. And if you look to either side of the road is slightly sunken, so that's possibly why it falls off the surface of the fields and into the roads. It is a sunken road here, isn't it? Anyway, not so much here. We hit some houses, so we know we're getting towards the end where the pub is. And we'll get to the pub. It's a sort of staggered crossroad, so we sort of do a right, left, and then we're in Black Park Road, and we're going to ride all the way up to the car park where people all walk around Black Park on the weekend, walking their dogs or whatever else they do. It's got a nice little artificial lake in the middle of it, and it's one of those things. It is an artificial lake, but it attracts people and it looks nice. I can remember when we were young, you could swim in it, and I'm pretty sure that in the modern world there'll be all sort of health and safety reasons why you can't swim in it. And I have to say, one of my best friend's brothers actually drowned in it, so it's not as safe as it probably looks. But as I say, we used to swim in it in a quite carefree way when we were young, and I doubt if you can now. Anyway, right, we're getting very, very close to the end here, so get ready for the final sprint. Now, there's not going to be anything uphill. This is the pub on the right where the time trials start from, or at least where you log on. The start of the time trial course is just over the road we're going to go into. So we're going to go right here, and the time trial start is just along there. And it goes around in circles. It's sort of like 1.5 laps. So you go to the end of this road, round back of Black Park, Pinewood Studios, where they make all the James Bond movies, and you come back down the road that we've just turned off. You come along here and then cut up. There's a road just before we get to the car park and finish, and the time trial goes back up there and does another half loop. So it's a 10-mile course, and as I say, very popular midweek events during the summer. So this is really it. This is the finish. No nasty hills for you to worry about. This is going to be sprint, sprint, sprint. Watch everybody else. What's left of the bunch, because I think the bunch will be smaller groups than some of our flatter races because of the undulations earlier on. So as I say, just keep an eye out. Be wary. We're in the final throes of this, and not quite at the point where I would sprint, but we're definitely getting there. Shall we say this is Black Park Road? I don't think that the bit on the left actually is Black Park, but that's kind of what Black Park looks like all the same. And it's a bit like Burnham Beach is just one of these places where they've sectioned it all off and just kept it as a lot of South Bucks would have looked like 1,000 years ago. I expect just wooded forest, really. So when you see the road on the left, we're coming up. We're almost at the finishing line, if you see that. The car park that we're going to turn into is, say, just past the turn-off. So by now, I would probably be thinking about sprinting if I were... if there were ever the chance I got in the front group, I would probably be looking at, getting geared up for the sprint now and just watching what everybody else was doing, because we're getting remarkably close. Perhaps it does sort of slightly incline there. I don't think you'll notice. I think you'll be at full pelt and that will just be taken in your stride. But as I say, it's coming up soon. It's trouble. All this looks the same, doesn't it? I can't tell one tree from another. But we must be near the finish now. I'm sure it's just around that bend where the turn-off is. And as soon as we see the turn-off, within a very, very short distance, you see the gates to Black Park. So having said that, it's not just around the bend. I could actually repeat myself and say that it's just around this bend, but if I keep doing that, I'll run out of bends. Is that a car coming out the side? Yes, that's a turn-off. So when you see the puddle, as if you're going to get that on RGT, there's the turn-off. Now you really are in the last 100 metres. You can see where the cars are turning in. There is the car park for Black Park. So the finish is actually here. I'm going to ride into the car park just to stop and sort of switch off the camera and all the other things that you do. And as you can see, absolutely heaving with visitors, a very popular destination. Good luck in the race. See you soon. Bye.